Hey friends, it's Cassie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and blog. Today I am here making a card for the Heffy Doodle new release Inspiration Blog Hop. And there will be a prize, but don't comment here for that prize. Comment on my blog. So I'll have that linked down below because you don't want to miss that opportunity. Comment here, of course, because I love your comments, but if you want a chance to win, you got to head to my blog and comment there. All right, so let's take a look at the products we're going to be using today. For my card, I decided I wanted to use the brand new Quill You Be Mine stamp set. I just think this stamp set is so stinking adorable. Check that out with all those adorable little hedgehogs and the darling sentiments that come with it, and of course all the little pieces. And then you have the matching dies. We're also going to be using the more strips of ease dies, and I like this because it gives you all different kinds of cuts that you can make in your cards, so I feel like it's kind of an essential. We're also going to be using the Simply Radiant stencil, and then we're going to be using the Skinny Circle Frames dies as well. So pretty excited about that. So let's go ahead and get started making our card. I've pulled out my Waffle Flower Media Mat because I really love the way this grips my paper, and the paper that I've chosen to use is the Bristol Smooth. This one is by Strathmore, 120 pound, and it's pretty awesome because it's good for ink blending and all kinds of stuff. And so I'm obviously doing some ink blending with my Distress Oxide inks. I just went into Pinterest and kind of looked up backgrounds and color blends and found this blend, and it isn't necessarily traditional because especially when you get to this color blend. So my first color was Peacock Feathers, then I went into Broken China, and then Abandoned Coral. So you'll see as those overlap, they kind of give you almost a little bit of a purple blend, almost. So it's kind of a purple-brown blend because typically when you have like an orange and a blue, those are complementary. So when those blend together, you're going to get brown. But because that's more of a pinky orange, it isn't quite brown. Then the next color I chose was White Ripe Persimmon and then Ground Espresso. And obviously I've sped this up like 4 times. I don't ink blend that quickly. I wish I did, but I don't. And then I'm just going to keep going over those colors until I have the blend that I want. At this point, I want to do some splatter, so I'm just spraying some water into my hand and flicking that all over that background. I'm going to take my microfiber cloth and just dab that up and then get more splatter going. And then I'll dab that up again, and to intensify that color even more, I will use my heat tool to dry that quickly. I'll take a piece of washi tape and put that behind my panel and attach that to my glass mat. And I did spray my stencil with some pixie spray. That stuff is like my new best friend when it comes to stencils. And I have pulled out the Nuvo Glacier paste in the color Sea Sprite. I thought this might be kind of fun. So Glacier paste, if you have not used it before, is very different than Glimmer paste. It is very different. This stuff shimmers like no tomorrow, but it isn't like a glitter. It's like a mica or something in there. And then this stuff spreads almost like butter. Although I have to say, I was having a heck of a time getting an even spread, even though I was using not a palette knife this time, but a spatula. And I do know that obviously since this is a wet medium, it is going to reactivate the colors underneath. So I'm trying not to work it too much, but I also want to make sure that I have that color deep enough so that when it sits on top of that ground espresso underneath, I don't completely lose the color Sea Sprite of the Glacier paste. So then I will peel that away and we have some beautiful magic. That stuff is so pretty. But it does definitely take a lot more time to dry than your regular Glimmer paste. I'm going to put the images that I plan to use inside of my Mini Misty along with some Neenah Classic Crest. This is the Solar White cardstock. I inked that up with some Memento Tuxedo Black ink because I plan to do some alcohol marker coloring. I stamped that up a couple times, and I did decide at this point that I wanted to add those little flower balloons back there. So I'm going to stamp those out a couple times as well, and then I'll move my paper. And if you're wondering why I have such a giant piece of paper, honestly, it's laziness and maybe a little bit of cheapness because I didn't want to cut that paper off not knowing for sure how much of it I actually needed. All right, so on to our coloring. I have taken some colors that are my favorite to color hedgehogs, and I've started with E00, and I'm going to put down just a base of that E00, and then I'm going to come in and put in some E11. And those would typically go very well together, as you can see. That's ending up a very nice blend, but I'm going to step it up a notch, and I'm going to use the BV02. Now, you might be thinking as I put this down, that's a hot mess, Cassie. And originally I usually think that too as I first put it down. I'm like, what are you thinking? And I do this every time. But when you blend it out, so I'll grab the E11 again, it just, it starts to really start to take form. And the reason I chose a blue violet is because, it's a little bit more realistic. I know that these critters are not realistic critters, but it's a little bit more realistic. And if you are looking at that thinking, I can't do that, that's fine. Maybe start with like a cool gray and work from there. All right, so for their quills, these are the colors I've chosen. I've started with W1, and that'll be my base. And I am definitely needing to refill my marker. That baby is getting dried out. And I've come in with some W5 now. And then what I should have done actually was taken my C3 Copic and put that one down first. And I realized this. And so I come back in with my C3. And I'll do it on my other little hedgie. I will bring that in as my second color, and then it works out a little bit better. But this is cute. I think he works out just fine. And then I'll come in and blend that just a little bit because I really do like that variation with the W5. I want their quills to stand out. Obviously, there's a lot of texture in quills, and so I want those quills to not be perfectly blended. And then coming back in with that W5 now. I just love these little guys. They're so cute. All right, and then blend that out again with the W1. And then their little noses will just be W8. And for the balloons, I have chosen, for the bigger balloons, we've got R20 and R22. More of a peachy color. And then I wish that I hadn't flicked around here. I wish I had just gone with solid, even though it's not that big of a deal. But it just would have made more sense not to flick it. But because that's just like the traditional, when I'm coloring with Copics, I just tend to do flicking motions. I don't really like the texture that it leaves on that balloon. So I wish that I hadn't actually done that. I wish I had just gone with more of a circle texture. All right, moving on to our smaller flowers. We're going to start with E95. This is going to be more of an orange color. And then we are going to come in with our darker, which is YR65. And once again, at least in this case, the flicking isn't that obvious, but I don't end up blending that out because those colors are quite similar. For my centers, I start with E59, and then I'm going to darken up, or my darker shade will be E49. And I don't blend those out either. I really do like the contrast that those two bring. And then I will use all of my matching dyes and line those up, just tack those down with a little bit of washi tape, and then I'll run that through my die cutting machine. And we'll have all those ready to go. So the next thing I did was I ink blended 2 panels, and this way I'm going to swap them out, and I can save the other piece for something else. But I have a brown panel, and then I have the panel that's supposed to look like the background as well. I could have cut it right out of that center, but to be honest, I didn't want the radiating stencil to be on this little part of the panel. I tacked the two together on the back just using some washi tape, and then I'm going to pull out some 3D foam squares, and I'll put that all over the back of that, making sure that those overlap where the two pieces would come together. And then I'll peel off all the release paper on those, and then I'll stick that down, making sure to match up the colors with their background. And then we're going to use a little bit of liquid glue for most everything else. I'm going to tack those little balloons together, just making sure that they overlap a little bit. And my plan with this was to make it look like the little hedgehog is held up by those. So I'm using a micro fine pen and just making it look like he has some ribbon from the balloons tied around him, just like that. And then we're going to stamp our sentiment just onto some white cardstock, and this is where the more strips of ease dies come into play. I'll just tack that down because I wasn't sure exactly how big I wanted this to be, but this way I get a perfect, especially when you don't stamp straight like me, you get a perfect cut every time. And then I'll pull out one of the cuts that would give it a flag banner or a fishtail, whatever you want to call it, and then I'll just tack that down with the washi tape and then run that through my die cutting machine as well. And then I'm going to tack that down to the front of my card using some of those 3D foam strips. And then we'll assemble everything else just using some liquid glue by tacking down my base and my little hedgehog. We now have a card finished. I did stamp on the inside as well, and then I tacked the rest of my pieces in there. So here's a hedgehog from me. I love how this card turned out. So as I said, this is a part of a blog hop, so I'll have my blog linked down below, so you can head on over there and you can check out the rest of the hop. Be sure to comment on the blog so that you'll be eligible for the prize. And if you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. I typically have lots going on my channel, at least 3 to 4 videos a week, and I would love for you to come back. And as always, thank you so much for stopping by.